All right, I'll call this meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Okay, if not, let's look at the minutes of February 2nd.
Could you just pause there for a minute?
Melinda, this is just a small thing, but there are just a couple typos in the name Glazer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, caught that. Thank you. Yeah.
Melinda, were you ever able to chat with Melinda Cope or ask her about whether I should talk to her?
Oh, Megan. Yeah, I apologize. That is totally escaped my mind, but I think you can talk to her, and I'm happy to connect you with her via email.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it escaped my mind too. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any comments on the minutes? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So
Move approval
moved.
of the minutes.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Terry. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed or any abstentions?
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here last time.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Yep.
All right, the minutes have been approved.
Okay. I put this item on the agenda because I believe you all brought it up a while ago that, you kind of wanted to follow up on the EAB plan and wanted an update on what the town was doing related to EAB now that it's Williston's considered in the infested area. So I just put up some links to the current management plan so that if you weren't familiar with it, you could take a look at it. And then I also found a spreadsheet detailing the town's costs to respond to EAB thus far, and also a roadside ash inventory that the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission did for the town last summer. Previously, the town had a tree inventory and had inventoried ash in I guess most of the neighborhoods north of I-89, but had not done any inventory south of I-89. So this, and I'll just show it. I'll just show it to you. Actually, it's probably here. So I kind of took that inventory and I created this like map that symbolizes the points of, basically where ash trees were documented, and by like the dot size shows like the size class of the tree and the color shows the condition. So, the conditions were ranked either good, fair, poor, or dead. And so this sort of gives you a picture of the ash trees in the right of way, and you can see that along Butternut there's a stretch where there's a lot of dead ash trees, along East Hill Road as well, and it looks like down along on South Road there is also a stretch there. So I don't know, I think the Public Works Department is kind of looking at this both from a cost angle and also from a public safety angle. So the way that they might prioritize any removals of ash along the road would be probably by the threat to public safety, which would be probably, both size and, condition of the tree. So anyway, I haven't really talked to Public Works about this inventory. I just took the information and made a map for your information. Some of it is outdated because I believe they took the information in the previous inventory and included it. They didn't re-inventory north of 89. They just included what was in the previous inventory, but all these trees have been removed.
Those have been removed.
To the best of my knowledge. So these are no longer ash. These are no longer ash. This is, these trees in Heritage Meadow have all been removed. So, it kind of looks like there's not even many remaining ash trees north of I-89 in the neighborhoods. I mean, it looks like Brennan Woods has quite a few, but anyway, as far as this is just a spreadsheet of the costs to date and what's been done to date. And again, Harvest Lane, they removed a bunch of trees. They removed all the ash trees out of Wildflower Circle on Marshall Ave and Harvest Lane. And that's basically what's been done.
Well,
to date.
that still leaves a lot that are in the northern part of the town that have not been removed.
Yes.
Like, for example, our neighborhood, Chatham Woods, none of them have been removed.
Right. Yeah. And I believe that the Chatham Woods neighborhood was even thinking about kind of doing their own proactive removals. At least somebody had spoken to me from the association about that. So they may not even, they may just, I don't know, Carl, you may know you may know more about that than me.
all I know is there's been talk about it, but as far as I know, there's been no decisions made or no
Mhm.
coordination with the town particularly.
Yeah. I did get a chance to take a look at Tony Giamato's webinar. I don't know if anybody else did, but I found it very interesting. And Gary, did you want to?
Oh, I just had a couple of questions. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
One is, I noticed when glancing through the plan here that it mentions the tree warden quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I just was wondering who that is and are they involved?
That's Bruce. That's Bruce Hoare.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That seems like a huge conflict of interest to me.
Interest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should,
well-
what do we do about that?
You can.
I nominate Gary to be the new tree warden.
Well,
You can- if you can always write a letter to the town manager and say, I want to bring this to the select board's attention.
personally, I think it would carry more weight if we did it from this committee. If everybody agrees that we should have a tree warden that's, not the person, not the current person for sure, but somebody with knowledge of trees and not in the public works department.
No.
It also seems like in the.
Well, what is the role of the tree warden? And
Thank
then
you.
let's figure out if that's a conflict of interest.
Well, when you read through here, Carl, it mentions it several times that this will be the tree warden's duty to do this, the tree warden contact the tree warden, it seems to be, in my opinion, a pretty significant role in this.
But it also read to me like kind of like a check, right? Like it was like a person who would like evaluate if there were like questions or if there were like specific, like the condition of a tree. And it doesn't seem like Bruce actually has the background to do that.
I would, usually you go through these small towns and on the main road in town, and there's this big wooden sign says, the tree warden, so it's somebody local in town, probably like I said, that has some knowledge. But I think Bruce is just so busy with so many other things that really to, take time to identify trees, and especially in the town forests and the other town lands, I don't think he would be able to get out to those and really.
I mean, honestly, I think the tree warden, my sense of tree warden is it's mostly about street trees, not necessarily trees in town forests. That's my
Really?
understanding of the
That's
role.
Oh,
And I think Bruce has been, has taken on this role because the street trees are in the public right of way. And, I think that you're entitled to your opinions about conflict of interest. I do think that Bruce has done a lot proactively to get grants to manage EAB. And it may not, I know that there's some feeling that ash trees shouldn't all be removed. And I think there's certainly an argument to be made in our town forests. Street trees, I think, again, like they're coming from a cost perspective, thinking that if left alone, most of these trees are going to die, and then it's going to be a big expense to have to replace them all at once. Anyway, I'm just saying that's the perspective that they're coming from, and given that the trees are in the public right of way, it makes some sense for the tree warden to also be public works director. But anyway, that's all.
Does the town have a job description for the tree warden? I would certainly like to read that before we took any action, that's for sure.
Probably.
So, I
might
just
even be able to
Dropped
find it.
into the chat to you, Melinda, a link to Vermont Tree Wardens.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a state defined role.
It
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
and the link on the Forest Parks and Rec page, they don't have a lot on the Forest Parks and Rec page, but then they link to this one that I just sent you, which is the
Yeah.
urban community forest and forestry. They have quite a bit more information on there.
There's also tree committees, which is a
Mhm.
concept to have like a conservation committee.
Yeah.
For people who take a look at trees across the town and make long-term plans and look at diversity and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that
there
does
might be
not,
more of a conversation to have about how do we manage trees in the town, not necessarily specifically about EAB.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think, again, like it's many tree wardens are trained arborists, foresters, natural resource professionals who take on the role of tree warden as a volunteer. Many others are already municipal employees within public works departments, parks departments, or road crews. It's a legal responsibility that protects and celebrates the natural resource. Tree warden statutes. I don't know. Do you guys want to look at the updates to the tree warden statutes, or?
You think maybe we should do this at another meeting and really focus on that? And, and maybe focus on the EAB right now and,
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense to me too. I was initially thinking that Bruce is tree warden because he was the last person to step back when they were asking for who would be one of the tree warden. But now that I'm reading this, maybe he wasn't.
I think, I mean, he may, who knows, but the select board appoints somebody to be tree warden, and from my experience in town, usually you're not asked, they tell you that you're gonna do this. And, so maybe that was the case. I don't know.
And right now it's the emerald ash borer, but down the road that could be, the sugar maples are being attacked by some thrip, or
Yeah,
the beech trees are being attacked by,
right.
So
But-
it's much more than just the EAB.
yeah. And I think, to Bruce's credit, he has solicited support and advice from Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program, like, pretty continuously. And he's gotten grants from them, and he's followed the management plan pretty much to a T. So I give him credit for that. And I don't know, maybe you see it as a conflict of interest. That's, and if we can discuss it more in detail in a future meeting if you'd like to do that.
And I think
I know, but Chapin would like to participate in a conversation about it. So if we're going to do that, he would likely attend.
Yeah.
I'd like to just like refocus us on the EAB plan, and something I wanted to speak to something that Melinda just said, which was, I know that there have been like a couple instances where there have been trees slated for removal, and I have disagreed with the removal of that specific tree. And I think there have been cases where the same thing has happened with Gary. And what Melinda just said of like the state endorses, urban and community forestry endorses the plan. I did, ahead of this meeting, reach out to Elise to clarify that. And so I just want to make it super clear that what the state endorses is a proactive plan, not our specific management strategies. So Elise said to me, we absolutely encourage and support proactive planning. As for the management decisions, they fall on a spectrum. Some towns are doing nothing until trees start to fall over. Some towns are starting to remove and replace EAB in their even before EAB is in their town. We don't make judgments about what's right or wrong for any town, and recognize it's a decision made based on the number of public ash trees, capacity to manage them, and threshold risk. So I think it's important that when we have these conversations, it's clear that like if we also had a management plan that did nothing, like if our management plan was to leave all trees in place until they fall over, the state would have equally supported that plan and endorsed it and given grants to carry it out. So this what the state office is supporting is proactive planning, not the management decisions that are in the plan. And Elise is sending the 7 other case studies to me to just share with the commission to illustrate the range of what towns are doing. There's a lot of variability. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that Elisa's office is not saying you need to cut these trees. We support the cutting of all these trees. They're saying it's great that you planned proactively. Great job with making a plan.
Yeah, so the Conservation Commission, to the best of my knowledge, was pretty involved in the making of this plan. There were, the membership has changed over some. And, maybe you may want to have a discussion about whether you want to update that plan or amend it in some way. If, if the commission is not in line with the current policies that are in the plan.
I guess when I read through it, the first thing that I saw was that it was written in 2015, which is 7 years old. And there has been a lot more information that has come out, and, new information about, treating the trees as opposed to cutting them, and, cost benefits and benefits to the biodiversity of the forest and things like that. And when we look at the map that you just showed, Williston is unique, where we have all these developments which have really heavily planted in ash. And there is a difference between a development and a forest. So I understand why the town at that time wanted to just go in and cut every single ash down, because it was on our doorstep. But now that they are removing all these trees in the town, the urban part of the town, that's a less attractant, I guess. And but there's still the ash trees out in the forests. So I think it would be good to really take another look at that, and maybe not just jump to cutting every single ash that's in the town and just obliterating that species, but maybe try to save some pockets of ash.
I also think I do think it would be worth reevaluating the street tree approach as well, because and Gary's had his hand up for a while and I keep jumping in front of him, sorry.
That's okay.
Because there also has been quite a bit of research about cost benefit analysis of street trees, and that Forest Service presentation that I emailed out, I don't know if folks had a chance to look at that, but it's specifically urban. And I think there's really quite a bit of evidence that the removal of large shade trees costs towns and municipalities a lot under climate change in terms of cooling and carbon sequestration. And it's not and property value, it's not costs that are as concrete as, like, do we have to deal with the risk of this? How much is it to cut it down? How much is it to treat? But it's costs nonetheless. And so I would advocate for reevaluation based on best available science now.
I just want to add to that they are treating 12 ash trees on the town green and library and the East Cemetery. It costs them $3,000 to do that, but they are looking at least the most culturally important trees and trying to preserve those.
How many years? Sorry.
What's that?
How many years have they been treating the library? Because I think recommended it.
Let's see. I mean, they do it, I think, every 3 years.
I saw them injecting it last year, I think, or a year and a half ago.
It's usually every 2 years. The bigger the tree, the more expensive it is. Those are, if they're what I'm thinking of, they're probably fairly large trees.
So since at least 2019, it looks like they've been treating them.
Yeah, so I saw treatment in 2021. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary, did you?
Linda, on this chart,
What's that?
Gary's had his hand up for a while.
I just want to make one last comment. Melinda, do you know who wrote this plan? Was it come out of Bruce's shop or?
No, it was a summer intern who was working with the Conservation Commission.
Because I do remember, I don't know if you guys remember, those of you that were on the commission back then, I thought we made a pretty good case for interplanting of trees prior to removal and starting younger trees. And I
That
don't
was
see a
my
word of
understanding
that.
too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that didn't make it into here at all. And
The
that
reason,
was,
yeah, and it did actually make it into the plan, but they don't do it because it's not feasible because of I mean, trees are planted in certain places because of underground utilities and so forth. So, to interplant, I don't know. They just
They did
determined that it wasn't
in
feasible.
Wildflower Circle, where they took down, where almost all the trees were ash trees, and they were all cut down. They did interplant, so they've got young trees growing there.
but I think we proposed interplanting before you take them down so that the new trees would have a chance to grow and it wouldn't be as obvious change from just knocking down all the others. But anyway, I don't know.
And I'll just add that Elise did tell me that Burlington is doing that and that she would be happy to share that plan with us if we're interested. And it does seem like if Burlington can do it and avoid underground utilities, it should be at least discussable here.
I know last night that at the form-based code, that person from the public asked about why all the trees were cut at, I guess it's Longhorn and Chili's and Staples, that area. They just went through and cut probably 10 or so trees, which obviously were ash. And she was upset. She was definitely upset about it. And, it wasn't what was on the agenda, but I think the public is concerned, when they see a lot of trees being cut like that.
Yeah,
I agree, Terry, and the same thing happened across the street from me here at Pleasant Acres. The neighborhood, I guess, went ahead and cleared out a whole bunch of mature ash trees that were between the row of houses that abuts Mountain View and the road. Same thing. It's kind of frustrating. And that's the neighborhood. That's not the town.
Melinda, that chart you showed of what's been cut down was 215 trees in just 4 locations. So
That's the town responsibility. Not even the private neighborhoods.
Keep in mind that they prioritize these by the neighborhoods with the highest percentage of ash trees. So like Wildflower Circle had like 99% ash trees, and then Harvest and Marshall were close behind that. So that's why you see the number of trees is so high.
So I guess, go ahead.
So we could look at the EAB management plan, or we could talk about, we're responsible for the ash that are at the parking areas for parks and natural areas. When I was on the Conservation Commission the Catamount Committee, and Terry also is looking at this now, there's really a very large ash on the ski loop, the lighted ski loop. And we talked about saving that tree. And I'm wondering what direction we should go in now. Should we talk about what we can do now, or should we look at the management plan? What would people like to do?
Would folks be interested in bringing in somebody who would be willing to provide background or evidence-based BMPs about urban and forest ash management in the context of EAB? I'm wondering if it would be helpful to have somebody say, here's the value of them on the landscape. I mean, Tony definitely did that in his webinar, but maybe not everybody watched it or has time to watch an hour-long webinar. I think actually it was longer than that.
It was very good though.
Yeah. And then potentially we could find someone else who does the same thing in the urban contacts definitely the forest. I'd have colleagues at the Forest Service who, and I'm sure Gary does too, this is their area. And there are folks who like just do the economics of this. Like, what is the cost of losing shade in climate change, right? Like that in urban areas, that's actually quite a bit. If you like look at health costs associated with less street trees. I don't know. I think it could be helpful to have the state explicitly said they don't provide the input on the management, the specific management. So I don't think urban and community forestry is going to weigh in on that. But I think we could get people who study it to weigh in on it.
I like that idea, Kim. I'd like to talk through the management plan and see maybe where the science has changed since that was put together.
I think that would be helpful. Yeah.
I agree. We also, Melinda, if we decide to treat any trees, where would that money come from?
It would have to be budgeted for. So, right now we don't, I mean, unless we have trails money, but we don't really have money specifically slated for treating ash trees. I mean, we do at Catamount, and we've been discussing, the committee has been discussing treating one or more, one or a few or several trees in that grove that you were talking about. And I think, there's still discussion about that, and that may happen.
So I guess I'd like to talk to the Catamount Community Forest trees. Minutes. So the last meeting that we had, I did put EAB on the agenda, and so we chatted about it. And if people aren't familiar with the ash trees over there, there's not a lot, but there is this one little grove. There might be 15 trees in this one area near the night loop, and one is very, very large. It's like 49 dBH, and which is large. And it would be costly to treat that. But on the other hand, the cost of cutting it down or taking it out or, getting into it would be expensive, and that there's no forestry plan, management that's going to happen there till 2026. So we decided as a group that I would do a little bit more research on how much it would cost and how many were there and along those lines. And I talked to Ethan, and he was thinking that he would be able to possibly get a hold of an injection system and be able to treat the trees there at Catamount. And instead of maybe costing $8 an inch for the tree to treat, it would be more like $2 or $3 if the town purchased the chemical to do that. So that definitely would be a great advantage, to be able to treat more trees. But just keeping some of those legacy trees. I mean, these trees are beautiful. They're huge. They add to the diversity of the forest, and it would be a real shame to lose them. A lot of them are right on the trail. So there's also a safety component to it for people skiing, walking, and mountain biking there. So those are some other things to think about. But yeah, I definitely going to look into that. But there's other pieces of town land that do have ash on it. Laura and Alicia went and they found black ash over at Mud Pond. I did walk on 5 Tree Hill Trail, and I couldn't find many. There was a couple of them were dead, but I found a couple alive. So, I just hope that we can maybe funnel some of that money that was slated to remove and replant some of these trees can be refunneled into treating some of these trees as opposed to taking them down.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Thanks for working with Ethan to make that happen. Eric, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks. It goes back a ways now, but I was just wondering, back to the how we pay for treatment of ash trees. So the town is paying for that currently. One that said that the town is treating a number of ash trees near the library, and so those funds are coming from somewhere. It's not coming from the Conservation Commission, correct?
No, it's not. I mean, that was budgeted a while ago. And so I certainly think it could be possible to budget some money for treating trees, but that was not done in this budget round. So it would have to wait until the next budget round to do that.
The
Right.
unfortunate
I was
part
just
is-
thinking that there's already a precedent somewhere
Mhm.
elsewhere in the town's budget to support this work. So maybe it doesn't necessarily have to come from the Conservation Commission budget.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing you could do is we could talk to Bruce for starters, and see what he thinks about treating, like, for example, treating some of these trees in Catamount, or treating trees elsewhere. If there are, trees that are good for shade, or I don't know, have cultural or ecological importance.
Yeah, who would do that, Melinda? Who would be the best person, do you think?
Do you want to do it?
Yeah, I can do it. I could do that.
One other quick point is that could potentially be part of that conversation is, and Melinda alluded to this, there are a lot of grants for managing for EAB. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it has to come out of a current pocket of money. And I think in particular, because of the cultural significance of black ash, there's quite a bit of movement right now on preserving them. And so potentially there are some, I mean, I don't unfortunately know them off the top of my head, but I wonder if there are grant opportunities or funding opportunities to help with explicit conservation of black ash.
I looked at the Urban Community Forestry website. They have these Caring for Canopy grants, but this year's round is already done. Like we would have had to apply in January, I think, or December or January. But they do have those grants. The funding is somewhat limited. It's like they have a total of $50,000. I know the town is, Bruce goes after those grants and has gotten a few $1,000s every year to help with ash replacements. And I don't know whether, I would assume that could be used to treat ash trees. I'm not aware of any other grant sources, but I don't know.
Could there be monies, maybe the Audubon would, this is for the Catamount community and town lands. Audubon maybe make a donation towards, treating for habitat, preservation. I don't know, what Fish and Wildlife. I know Ethan had gotten some money from the habitat stamp and from the USDA or something. That was for the invasives last year. So, kind of thinking of different places where we might be able to get some funding, because it's, the EAB was found in Richmond. So I think time is of the essence before it shows up in Williston.
Forest Services, Urban and Community, National Forest Services, Urban and Community Forestry Challenge Cost Share Grant did get re-upped this year. I don't know if we qualify. That's due in April. They have a ton of money. Those are huge grants. I think there are probably, I know last year Northeast States Research Cooperative included in their grant call something specifically about indigenous communities and traditional ecological knowledge, which black ash, like inventorying them might fall under that. I don't know if they'll have a separate call for that again this year, but I think, I mean, yeah, I think there are creative, it's work. I don't know who's going to do that work to go and find the grants and apply for them, but I just wanted to put out there that that might be a way to pay for things.
And the time slot to treat these trees is like May, June. Is the optimal time to treat them. So it's
But
coming
it
up.
can be any time that they're aspiring.
Right.
They just have to be, it just can't be super dry, and they can't be, they have to have leaves that are aspiring. So if it's like super dry and they're not respiring, they won't take it up.
Like last year, we had that drought in the spring, and you would have, nobody would have ever known that was going to happen. So.
Okay, let's see, what time is it? Our time for discussing this is a few minutes away from being over. It sounds like this is a big conversation, and Melinda, we should probably come back to this at another meeting. I can talk to Bruce. And if anybody hears about any grants, I mean, I can do a Google search also. And look around and ask those that might know about it.
You just sent this one that Melinda is sharing. I have no idea if it's a good fit. I didn't read the RFP yet. I just know that this call comes out somewhat regularly. And it's usually pretty focused on, I'm always like, oh, why don't they fund research, right? Like I always want to apply for it for my work, but it's never a good fit for my work. It seems more tailored to municipalities. So that's why I thought it might work here.
I wonder if this money, I don't know, this is just a guess, but I'm wondering if this money gets funneled to the state urban and community forestry program, and that's where their source of funding is for their grants. I don't know.
They have in the past got this funding, but it doesn't have to go that way. So I have applied to this before, and you do have to get, like, Elise has to write a letter of support. So when I previously applied for it, Danielle Fitzko wrote the letter of support, but they really want, like, the thing that I was interested in was, Eric might remember this because I think maybe Basin Program was a partner. We were really interested in whether or not leaf litter from urban street trees was contributing to the phosphorus budget in the Lake Champlain Basin. And wanted to do like an urban watershed forestry project. And it was like too researchy for them. Like there wasn't enough funding of management implications or implementation of management. And so
yes, we prefer to support research that can be directly applied to management decisions and less so on exploratory research.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think like that was the issue, I guess. So my sense is that, yeah, state, community and urban forestry programs where they exist can access this money, but the money can go to, like, Williston would be eligible to apply. They have to be really good proposals. Ones that I have seen, I know colleagues that have gotten this, and ones I have seen funded are like really frequently involve like education and outreach with specific community groups. Or like management coupled with education and outreach.
So I guess before we leave this, I just want to kind of get a sense, do I understand that folks are in the committee are interested in treating trees instead of just cutting them down? Is that kind of the feeling, or is there just more people need more information?
Well, I would like to ask, is it our intention to update the EAB management plan, or are we happy with the way it is, being that it's 7 years old? And if it seems like if we do intend to update it, that ought to be one of the first things we ought to do.
I'll repeat my previous proposal, which is I do think it's worth revisiting the plan and in light of best available science. And I think it would be great to hear from people who like this is their area of research and they're in a position to say, here's what we would recommend in terms of best management practices in this context.
So Kim or
I
Gary,
agree, Kim. And, you know, if any plan that's 8 years old, I think it's worth revisiting regardless, especially in something like this where the situation has changed quite a bit over time. So I agree. I think it's a good opportunity for us to take another look at this plan.
Kim or Gary, are there people you can ask? We can take another look at the management plan and have specific questions for them when they come also.
I'm happy to invite people. Gary, are you talking with Tony regularly? Do you want me to ask him? And then I definitely have some urban.
Yeah, I'd be happy to ask Tony. He lives in Williston, and I'm sure he'd at least look at this plan and with his pretty high level of knowledge of this, make some comments. I think as far as the concerns I had, which are, I don't know, I'm a little upset that we did focus on interplanting, that type of thing. And I think, to be honest with you, when we went through this with Bruce, he was not flexible at all in changing his idea of what this plan should be. In fact, I remember him saying to me something like, well, what do you know about this stuff? A couple times right in the meeting, because I was asking questions about what his plan was. Anyway, so that's gone by, and I think it may be too late for that because the interplanting had value 5 years ago that's gone now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be happy to ask.
There's so many neighborhoods that haven't been treated yet.
Yeah, I mean, we could, I guess the bigger ones perhaps have been done, but we could suggest that again. But I remember when we suggested it, and I think our whole committee kind of supported it, Bruce just said, you know, pretty much, I could tell he wasn't going to act on it at all, just based on his attitude. And I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh, I remember. That was very clear.
I mean, it is difficult to exert control in that arena because, you know, basically Bruce controls the right of way and everything in it.
Well,
so it's
but
hard.
it's not his. I mean, it's ours as
right,
townspeople.
right,
I mean, he should, in my opinion, like any town person should, like anybody should be open to other opinions and consider them. And you know, when people who are involved in the planning say this is what we want to do, you don't exclude that from the plan.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that this may be hard to overcome, and
yes, I agree with you.
It may take, you know, if you
may
feel
not be worth
strongly
it.
about it, if you feel strongly about it, then, you know, go to the select board and talk to them about your concerns.
I think
Yeah,
maybe
we'll come to
one,
that once we look at the best available science and we look at the existing plan and we see what the gap is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the gap is small, then maybe we can work this out. If the gap is large, then maybe we need to look for a rewrite of the plan.
Yeah.
You know, on
agree.
that chart, Melinda, that you showed that had the 4 areas where trees had been removed, only one of those areas was a neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, there has been interplanting.
Mm-hmm.
Which neighborhood's that?
Wildflower.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So
neighborhoods
they
really strongly
planted
don't want
trees
just trees
before
removed.
they planted trees before the ash trees.
I'm not sure the timing, but the trees have are coming up pretty fast.
Yeah, I think, but our idea at that time of interplanting was to plant them 5 years ago, and then as the trees get ready to be cut, they would be a bigger size than they would be just planting them after you cut the trees down.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, that was kind of their test, I think, kind of their first neighborhood that they wanted to do. And of course, they couldn't plant them 5 years ago by the time this plan was. So.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Sorry, Terry, I talked over you there. Did you have
oh,
something?
that's okay. I was just thinking, you know, this kind of dovetails together is maybe look into finding a new tree warden with a broader outlook or scope or whatever, and someone who's not so, closely tied to as the road commissioner, and get somebody that has just a bigger view of the whole situation, but also combine that with updating the plan.
Mhm. Okay, well, let's move forward. We're going to hear from Kim or Gary about maybe when Tony or someone else can come speak to us, and we can talk about the plan again then. I think we should hold on, unless somebody wants to write a letter, as Melinda suggested, about the tree warden. I think we need to put that on hold unless somebody's willing to do that.
And I mean, I understand your concerns, and I'm not trying to say like, don't express your concerns, but I am saying that this could get really political. We depend on Public Works for a lot of things. We ask Bruce to help us out with, from time to time on, removing down trees. So I'm just saying I'm just saying maybe proceed with caution. And, if you're basically asking Bruce to be removed from that position, it could get controversial.
Just with all the new development that's coming too is another thing to look at. His responsibilities for, road maintenance and, is going to increase. And he possibly could have less time to deal with all these trees and things like that. So, maybe it would be a relief to him to say, oh, thank goodness somebody else is going to take this on, because with all these new developments that are popping up, that's, going to take him more time to deal with those.
Okay, well, I think we should table that idea for now and think about it. And we'll move forward with looking at the EAB management plan. Okay, and unless there's something else that's important, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Oh, Reed, do you have your hand up?
I'm waving to Nico.
Oh, okay.
Priorities, Laura.
Okay. Hi, Nico.
All right, I'm gonna mute so that you don't all have to listen to the cardinal.
Okay, I guess I was going to give you some updates on the Field Naturalist Program projects. And let me I was going to see if I could access these things. All right. Whoops. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so there are a couple of students who have chosen to look further at significant wildlife habitat area. One student is going to specifically do some wildlife tracking and setting up cameras at road crossings. Another student is going to kind of do the same, but along the riparian areas like Muddy Brook and possibly the Winooski, just to get a little bit more, information on the ground of, what's out there.
When you say Winooski, Melinda, do you mean Jacob?
No, not necessarily Jacob, but just
Near the Winooski?
Places along the Winooski River.
Okay.
And let's see, somebody is going to look at the ERF and try to do a raster-based analysis of, basically do this similar methodology of ERF prioritization, but do it in such a way as to get a finer picture of what's going on, not parcel based, but pixel based. so that we might better answer the question, what part of this parcel is most valuable for conservation? So we'll see. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but that's what they were interested in. And someone else is going to look at non-regulatory means of land protection. So this is the idea of talking to rural landowners about their priorities and how, you know, they might protect their land as working land. What the challenges are, what are some strategies? Are they, you know, supportive of expanding uses in the ARZD? You know, sort of getting at Kim's idea of talking to these farmers about that and seeing, you know, what the opinions are out there. Someone is looking at exploring opportunities for trail connections, particularly with if there's connections to abutting municipalities, opportunities for trail connections, and also maybe walking some of the easements and assessing the on the ground feasibility of some of our trail easements. They probably won't have, you know, these are short, these projects are being done in a short time frame, so they're going to have to prioritize. This person who's working on trail connections may only be able to investigate, you know, a couple of easements. You know, so if you had any ideas for priorities as far as what you wanted them to check out on the ground, certainly let me know. And then let's see, somebody is looking at opportunities to use the town hall meadow for environmental education research demonstration. They are specifically looking at the idea of planting a pollinator garden under the solar array as one idea, and also looking at other ideas to kind of make the area more appealing to the public and basically make it try to enhance it as a resource for education and demonstration.
Related question to that, Melinda.
Yeah.
Has an application been submitted to the state as far as wetlands, as far as pedestrian access to the parcel?
I'm working on it. Fitzgerald Environmental is going to provide a cost to do that for us to do the permitting.
I'm just curious. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then a couple of students are going to do rapid ecological assessments, one on the Burnett parcel and one on the Jacob Krantz parcel. So that's it.
No drones. All right.
No drones. Yeah.
That's all right. I'll still hold on to my dream of middle schoolers getting to do it with a mentor.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I think this is a good group of students, and I will look forward to what they produce. Their final deliverable is going to be a story map for each project. So hopefully at the end of this, I'm thinking that we might have a gallery of story maps to for you to look at and probably to show the public. So I think that'll be really cool.
Are the story maps going to be on a service that we also use, Melinda, such that we could adapt them down the road, or are they going to kind of be stuck the way they are when they're delivered?
A lot of them live in ARC.
No, they don't. They live in ArcGIS Online. I mean, I suppose there's a way to be able to edit them.
Yeah, just
you know,
if you see an opportunity to be able to carry them forward, you know.
Yeah.
We know that classes have specific period of time they're working on this, and
yeah,
I'm sure that there'll be areas where they identify stuff that's just out of scope for their project, but perhaps would want to be added later if we were able to.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure how that would work, but I can definitely look into it. And then, same, I'm working with the undergraduate group. There's a group of about, I think it's a team of about 6 in the NR 206 class that I'm working with on developing a survey, a townwide survey around expanding uses in the ARZD. So I think they said they developed a rough draft that they're going to share with me this Friday, and then we'll be working to refine it. And then they'll be developing a method for distribution. And they're, I guess, consulting with professors who have done a lot of survey work. So I'm hoping they're getting good guidance in that department. Gary, did you have a question?
Well, I just was getting back to you mentioned that there may be that we could indicate what areas that we want the easement, suggested areas for the easement possibilities. I don't know if you want to hear that now or later or what.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I was thinking of 2 of them. One was, and I don't think this connection has been made, was from 5 Tree Hill area over to Butternut Road. I think we have some of those connections, but I'm not sure about that.
Mhm.
And another one was completing that Hurricane Lane, all the way over to, I guess it would come on to Old Creamery Road or something along the way. I don't really know where that goes, but I know there's some easements in there as well.
Yeah. Mhm. So the one from 5 Tree Hill to Butternut, is that the one through Barlin's property? That you know of, Shagbark?
But yeah, I believe it goes through there and at least comes out and goes down the road there. I'm actually not positive, but it'd be nice to learn what the options are on that one, and potentially if it goes all the way through, to open it up or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Melinda, if you want to give the student who's doing the Hurricane Lane to Old Creamery my email, I mean, I know all those trails back there.
Oh, great.
Are you talking about the easement that goes through the state parcel, the public safety building? Or are you talking about something else?
So I think something else. I'm talking about going down Bradley Lane has those easements that go down along the interstate.
Oh, let me just, I think it would be helpful if I pull up the map. So why don't I do that?
That's what I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see, planning, town plan. Parkland and primitive trails. Okay, so actually we're looking at it right now. So so these then, right? Or not? No, that's not Bradley Lane. Oh.
Yeah, east-west.
East-west. These.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, the neat thing about Bradley Lane and even the continuation of Bradley Lane is that the Yandows that sugar in there have made this road really beautiful.
Does anybody know who owns this property? Because that looks like there's a gap in the easements there.
Right.
Is the piece that's cross-hatched, is that Burnett?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's town owned. We already know that
one
there's
gap there.
Yeah, there's some kind of trail system, some sort of rogue trail system over from Hurricane Lane that goes into town property. I think we talked about that a couple of years ago. Doesn't exactly follow this line, I would say.
Mountain bike trails, yeah.
Yeah, mountain bike trails. But yeah, we could have the person explore this connection. And then I'm assuming you could just walk on Bradley Lane down the road, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a really nice, nobody goes over there except the people that live there. So that's a really nice road to walk on.
Yeah.
And soon there'll be a park and ride at the far end of Hurricane Lane. So
Oh, that's right.
there's that.
Oh, you mean over here? Yeah.
Yeah, just that, there's going to be
park
more
and ride.
facilities being added
Yeah.
on that end of that connection.
What I was thinking too is I was wondering if the person should explore a possible easement for getting through the state parcel. Not this here,
Yeah.
but kind of going across like this, because the state seemed willing to grant an easement, but we needed to kind of determine where that was going to go.
Yeah, weren't we going to take a site walk at some point?
Yeah, we were. Maybe you guys can take a site walk with the intern.
Yeah.
Good
I
idea.
think that's a great connection. You can go all the way from Brownell Road all the way over to
Yeah.
Mud
I
Pond.
don't know where you would park over here, but
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know.
What's that road? Is that Brownell where your cursor is? Oh,
Yeah. I mean, there's like the old quarry here, but I don't think they want people parking there
Yeah.
necessarily.
and the town has an easement right there?
Town has an easement. And then all along here, but then it ends right here. And this is where the state parcel is, where they're going to be developing the safety building, the public safety building.
Oh.
And they would rather us come through like sort of the back of it and then kind of go over like that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
That's a great place to explore, especially since they're willing to do that and that's coming up.
mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So I've got these ideas. Oh, and then let's just look, while I have it in mind, let's just look at 5 trees. So you're talking about 5 tree to butternut. So there's this too.
Yeah.
Or there's, 5 tree is this. So this easement goes along Shagbark Lane, I think. And ends up
Yeah,
there.
that's the one I was thinking of, but it'd be really nice to finalize that and maybe even open it up if it's possible to provide a legal way to walk through there.
Yeah. Okay.
And even that other connection, if they had time, that other connection down to Butternut Hill from, I guess, the trail between, halfway
Yeah.
between the 6 and the 7 that goes all the way down to Butternut would be, if they had more time, they could look into that one too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Certainly
Melinda,
gives
you
us some
listed off
ideas.
such a long list of activities the class is planning on doing. Is that going to be in the minutes so that I can refer back to it?
I can put a link to the. I can put something in the minutes, or I can put a link to the project list, or.
Yeah,
something
and
like that.
or even just a link to the project list would be great. Just I want to be
Yeah.
able to think a little bit more about those
Okay.
now that they've selected what they want to work on.
Yeah.
Linda, I have just
right.
a quick question. What you have on the screen right now, I'm just looking at from Pumpkin Hill to Beartown Lane. That's an easement. All through,
Yeah, that was another one that I had thought of.
because that's
Only
right near
because,
Laura's.
yeah, only because, what was I gonna say? Only because this person who has this easement recently came in for a permit, so it'd be really easy to just email him and say, oh, by the way, would it be all right if we have someone walk the trail easement? And he'd probably say yes.
Yeah.
If it's low hanging fruit, have them do it.
Yeah,
Take
Yeah.
advantage of the fact that they're engaging with the town.
right.
That's a great idea.
Is that Victor Forrest?
No, it's Ken Pigeon.
Oh, Pigeon. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. It does sort of come almost to Laura's. So
Yeah, Laura's is right there, and somebody is working on recreation in that group.
right. So who
So
knows?
which
Maybe there
piece? Which piece is Laura's? I thought it was over to the left more.
It's
So maybe I'm
this
wrong.
parcel.
Oh, it's
Oh,
that
no,
one.
you're
Okay.
right. It is. it
Yes,
is
yeah,
yeah, it's
never
that
mind.
one, I think.
It's that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I
wrong
thought.
about that.
And then there's unofficial trails back in Caboose Lane, so there's no easement back in Caboose Lane.
This one here.
I don't know where Caboose Lane goes. Oh no, Caboose Lane is way over to the left. Yeah, I'm in the wrong area. Yeah. So
Huh.
down to the left more. Yeah.
Oh, I don't
Just
know.
after the curve at Beartown Lane, it's to the left of it. So
Oh, up here.
yeah, a little down further, but yeah, so that's the students probably will kind of work on that too.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Very.
Okay, so other than that, I don't have much to report except that form-based code. I know, Terry, I saw your face last night at the form-based code public hearing. The Planning Commission had a second public hearing on the form-based code last night, and there has continued it to March 1st. So there's continues to be a lot of discussion. There continues to be pushback from developers on the new code, and comments from citizens on various pieces of the code. Let's see, maybe I can just share somewhere. What am I doing? Planning Commission. Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's been some talk about proposed changes to try to alleviate some of the concerns from developers and incorporate a little bit more flexibility into the code. Nothing has been voted on by the Planning Commission as far as these changes. They're going to discuss them next meeting and possibly even after that. But there's a lot of talk about having more flexibility to move streets around in the regulating plan. Perhaps taking what's south of Marshall Avenue out of the form-based code district completely, or only have like 150 feet from Marshall Ave in the district. There's been talk of perhaps taking the Essex Alliance property out of the form-based code, because Chris Snyder's project has already been through pre-app, and he stated that he would like to be vested in the current bylaw because he spent a lot of time and effort on making a plan for his development.
Well, he
So
knew
there's,
this was being developed as he was putting his plan together, but yes.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And he came to the planning board for a specific plan just recently?
Yeah, he did, and that really hasn't gone anywhere since then. But essentially, yeah, a specific plan would sort of be similar to taking his parcel out of the form-based code district. And also on Senecal's land, where Cottonwood Crossing is, Senecal has been pushing back pretty hard on the regulation on the form-based code, and stated that over 50% of his property is slated to be natural area or public greens, and he is, he's pushed back on that quite a bit.
Didn't Jeff say, he was saying that a lot of that is class 2 wetlands?
Yeah, a lot of that's class 2 wetlands, and some of it is the Burrock Knoll. And so I guess the Borough Knoll is also already protected under the town's regulations. And, Al claimed that he knew nothing about the Borough Knoll when it
Said
was
it was
first.
6 acres.
6
first, then
acres,
I
now
think
it's 12 acres. So anyway, there's been a lot of that. So just to
I
keep you
really-
informed, and, feel free if you want to come to the next public hearing and kind of get in on the action, feel free.
It was great to have a member of the public speak, and she talked about how it was at the previous meeting as well, is that she didn't feel, like Williston, the town of Williston, the Taft's Corner as it is now is not welcoming, and she goes in and leaves. And that, to have a walkable town would be so much nicer than just being in your car going from one shopping park, mall to next. So it was good to have public comment.
Terry and Melinda, do you feel like it's missing voices like ours at those public hearings so far?
I mean, my sense is that there is a strong community desire to have green space in Taft Corners, and I feel like that's been pretty clear.
Okay.
I think
'Cause
certainly
the main thing I would say if I came was that we're so far behind on establishing green space, and we've relied on developments to do it independently, and it just hasn't worked out for the developments themselves, let alone for people who don't have private green space.
I think that would be great, a great, sort of statement to kind of reinforce that idea. There is definitely a lot of pushback from developers, particularly Al Senical, on the amount of green space. And I think it's important to kind of really hold firm to the community's desire to have that in Taft Corners.
My neighborhood, the hamlet in which is within the Taft Corners district, it is a great example of how we have almost no usable green space. We were supposed to have facilities. We were supposed to have a soccer field, a basketball court, a kid's playground. We were supposed to have all this stuff. What we got was a gazebo and some grass, and the grass is right next to people's houses, and they don't want people there.
And the similar thing has happened in Finney Crossing. It started out having this sizable green space, and
just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks.
The incredible shrinking Finney green space. It's now like maybe an acre of green space in Finney, and it's not very usable. So
do you think that it would be, is there any like value or utility in demonstrating like how the shrinking happens? Because it does seem like, as a member, it does seem like members of the public could hear proposals and think like, oh, the developers are saying they'll integrate this, maybe there's not a need for regulation, right? So like that process of shrinking.
The same thing almost applies to the buffers, right? The way that buffers are great in theory, and then their implementation doesn't always end up.
But I think like the process of why that happens, is there value in showing people that? Or do you think like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter because Melinda, you just said there is public support for the green space. I guess I'm trying to say like, is there a value in illustrating the need to specifically like regulate it?
Well, I think, to that point, Emily internally at least sort of pulled together like all the various stages of Finney Crossing, and she was able to show how it shrunk. And so, maybe that would be worth
that's been
like calling out in a public meeting.
I think if it's not regulated, any open space, the more money the developers can make. They don't make money on green space.
But I guess the point is like when they make their early pitches, it looks desirable, right? Like what Reed just described of like, we were going to get a soccer field, and like that's That sounds desirable. That sounds like my neighborhood. And so if I heard that early on, I might say like, perhaps there's no need for a specific regulation. Perhaps the developers recognize the value of this, and perhaps that's part of their marketing pitch, and they're gonna be able to sell the homes in these neighborhoods because like having that space that designed that way is like proactive thinking and progressive, and people are gonna want to buy homes here. I think to actually illustrate like it's not what happens in practice, it could demonstrate the need for rules, right? I don't know. Maybe it's combative, or like maybe it would drive conflict with the developers. Maybe that's already there and we don't worry about that. I'm just thinking like ultimately like you want as many people at the meeting that are informed, right, of the full picture.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. And, I think that's something that we could do. I could talk to Matt and Emily about that. But I mean, I believe that it is necessary to push back and just, kind of show why it's needed.
Well, was it a couple of years ago, the CRG group tried to get, a open space requirement in the RZD, is that right? The RZD in the residential area, and there was huge pushback from the developers, and it just didn't go. But it ended, Emily put together a survey, and they got 70 pages of comment from the public from that survey saying we need open space, we need green space. And right now, similar what you're talking about, the golf course, Catamount Golf Course, is in the plan, says they're going to have all this fluff, just like Reed talked about. And it'll be interesting to see how much ends up, because it's not required and there isn't much green space there. But yeah, if it's not required, I think the developers will, like the Cottonwood area, it's just, if there's no building, it's not going to make the developer money. So.
I have just a couple, like, how did LaFave Lane happen? There's totally room for like 5 more houses, and somehow nobody tried to build them. It's a modern miracle. And then
that was built 40 years ago, right?
81.
Different era.
Yeah.
I also know some developments benefit from the developer choosing to live in their own development, and so they have a little bit more stake in how it turns out in the end compared to the initial plans.
I don't think that happened here. I think they just didn't realize that they were just building like quick, cheap houses as like a demo of what a neighborhood could be in Williston. As a result, there's a lot of weird stuff in my house. Like we have a tennis court and green space, but also we have walls that are definitely not 90-degree angles. Then the other question I have is, what happened with those surveys? Like that's really powerful. 7 pages of, like, how old is that, and where are all those?
70 pages. 70 pages.
Where are they?
We still have it. It was put out on Planner's Corner. We definitely publicized the results of that survey, and we still have it. And yeah, so
is there like an easy, like, is there a way that could be like just like a really easy, like, here's the number of people that said green space was important to them, and here's a quote that illustrates that could be like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, what is the powerful messaging that's fast at one of these meetings to say like, we want to have a comprehensive representation of how people in town feel, not just what happens at planning meetings, right? I don't have to tell anybody this, but I'm going to say it for the transcript. Is it like people who have a stake in the game and have time come to the planning meetings, and then if they're loud and the dominant voices, it seems like it's the predominant opinion, majority, right? And it may not be the predominant opinion. And how do we represent the full range of feelings through the town?
I mean, we could take a look at the survey and kind of do like a quick glean of it. The other thing, the other surveys that are out there are the surveys specific to the form-based code that we also have access to. I mean, specific to the Taft Corners Growth Center, of what people want to see there. You know, we have those surveys too, that we can pull up and just, you know, I don't know, do some sort of quick, you know, grab of, you know, to get an idea of like how many mentioned green space or the need for green space.
I don't have time to do like a full qualitative code, but I do have the qualitative coding software, and word searches are super easy and it takes like 10 seconds. So
Oh
if
yeah,
you want access to that software, let me know.
sure. Yeah, I'd love it.
It's just, you just like upload it and then you could tell me the words. You'd have to like give me
Yeah.
the, or I could bring my laptop over to
Uh-huh.
walk down the street with my laptop.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I could just like, yeah, we'll figure out a way to do that. I think.
If it's helpful and you feel like it's useful.
I think it could be useful, you know, because the other thing that we've been hearing from the developers is like, oh, those are the same 15 people that show up. They don't know what they're talking about. They, you know,
Or
like
the
just,
same 15
They're
people that show
overrepresented.
yeah, right. So being able to say, no, actually, we got over 100 responses that said that they want to see more green space in Taft Corners, and yeah.
I was, you know, a couple of meetings ago, Megan did bring that up. She said that from that survey, the people clearly spoke and said that, you know, the views of Mansfield are disappearing, the green spaces are disappearing. So she said, you know, people are getting weary of development in town.
Mhm.
And it was interesting. I was looking back just recently about, you know, to some of the planners' corners, and I came upon that planners' corner that Matt had put out 2 years ago in
Oh,
the
yeah.
Front Porch Forum, and it said 500 house development coming to Williston. People are up and ready. Well, here it is. It was the Glazier
Mm.
property. It's
Yeah,
here, but now
well,
it's
yeah.
200. And
Yeah, it is
people
kind of
were, you know,
ironic,
people
isn't it?
thought, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
So people saw that, they reacted
Mhm.
to it about the
Mhm.
development, and it really it got people's attention.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
don't
I'm-
understand why the developers think that green space is necessarily bad. You'd think that the more green space there was and the more nicely it's designed, the value of their apartments or condos or houses would go way up.
Yeah, and there does seem to be a disconnect there, and I don't know why either. But yeah, all we've been hearing from certain people is, you've taken away half my land. That's land that I could have made money off of, and now it's green. And the consultant saying back, no, we've added a whole lot of value to your land, because it's going to be,
Of what's
people
around
are
it.
going to really want to live there, and we've made it really nice. So there is definitely a disconnect there.
Mm.
I have to bring Nico to Audubon, but Melinda, if you just send me an email, basically send me an email and we either could set up a time, or send me like the raw file and tell me the words you want searched for. Either of those I can do. And it can upload like most any files, but if it's a survey, Excel is like the easiest way to keep it organized.
Okay.
But we
Yeah,
also could have a meeting and talk about it.
okay. I'll look at what we have, and I'll reach out to you. and
Okay,
Figure
sounds
it
good.
out. Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
By Melinda, if Emily's going to take a look at Emily and Matt are going to take a look at what has been presented in terms of the realities of green space. And I'm happy to meet with Emily or look at what they've got and tie it to any comments that I would make at the next public hearing.
Okay, yeah, I can ask, because I know that Emily had like put some stuff together, so I'll ask her about that.
Do you get any, as part of the pushback from the developers, when people, the public says they want more green space, do the developers say, use the argument, well, if we put in more green space, we cannot put in as much affordable housing. We will not be able to do that. Does that come into it?
Yeah, that is certainly one of the arguments put forward, as well as green space and all the roads that they have to put in now. And yet the last meeting we heard, if we're gonna have to do that, then we're gonna have to kiss affordable housing goodbye. So
That's his exact words.
yeah,
Really? No.
yep.
Okay, thank you for all that, Melinda. Yeah, it sounds like we should all be at that next meeting.
It's worth to watch. It was recorded. You can watch the meeting that happened last night, but it was an interesting, I just sat and watched and listened.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, especially to listen to the developers. And you could probably like scroll through the meeting at the bottom, and then when you see a picture of, when you see like Jeff Nick's face or Al Seneca's face, you could stop it and listen to what they have to say. But I mean, it's pretty much just saying the same thing, or, you know, we've been hearing it over and over again. But, you know, it is interesting. So.
I just
All
want to say
right.
one more thing that I said to Chapin last night, because he was pretty tired after that meeting, after that hearing.
Yeah.
But what I told him is that it's important to remember that the design of Taft Corners is not being built for the people who live today in the homes that are in Williston today. It's being designed for people who are going to want to live here in 5, 10, 15, 25 years. So
Yeah.
you know, some of the things may not make sense to those of us who live in residential developments, you know, or rural areas of Williston today. But we have to remember that that's not the target audience necessarily. People looking to downsize, people looking to move back to Vermont after attending school or starting careers. You know, there's a different demographic that might be interested in the design of Taft Corners.
Yeah.
And there was a pushback, and I don't, you know, I haven't been involved long enough to understand, but they really wanted single story buildings, and they did not want to put housing on top. And you go to Burlington and Church Street, and there's plenty of retail with housing on top, which works. It seems to be, and it's a way to provide housing in that area. But they were really reluctant to.
And customers for business.
Well, yeah. So Jeff Nick and Jeff Davis, who own a large part of Taft Corners, are pushing back on the idea that they won't be able to build single-story buildings anymore. And because single-story buildings accommodate big box stores, and that's what they've been building. So they're basically being asked to kind of rethink the type of development that they're doing. And you know, yeah, I mean, it does kind of preclude big boxes, but what we have been hearing from the citizens is that the people don't really want big boxes, don't want more big boxes.
I think we might have enough.
Right, and
Yeah.
there's empty ones. Yeah.
And there's empty ones. So yeah, I mean, they just want to keep being able to build the big boxes, and this development would preclude these development regulations would preclude that.
When would Cottonwood, so Cottonwood has been built out there in the front, but the wetlands look like they're all kind of south and to the west, you know, that long strip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's unbuildable anyway.
Well, yeah.
Green space.
Yeah. And, you know, there's been the argument from developers that well, the wetlands are probably overstated on the map, and there could be a lot more buildable space. In our experience, it's usually been the opposite, that the class 2 wetlands portrayed on the A&R atlas are usually understated, and they're usually more expansive than what's depicted on the map.
Have
Yeah.
you heard of any funding that's going to come down the pike for mapping wetlands from the Rebuild America, or whatever it's called, funding?
ARPA? No, I
Yeah.
haven't heard of any funding for mapping wetlands.
That was mentioned in
know.
one webinar that I was attending.
Oh, okay. Well, if you know anything,
Maybe Jens,
Pass
I
it
think
on.
maybe.
yeah.
Because it would be good, I think we talked about that. It would be good to know ahead of time where the wetlands are and how large they are before a developer comes. Take like the Baptist church, where are those wetlands and how much of it is unbuildable?
Well, it's found out at some point, right? They have to hire
Well,
someone.
yeah, I mean, it's right now, it's put on to the developers. They need to have a delineation done, and it needs to be current. So that cost has typically been borne by developers.
And do they usually kind of do that after the fact?
Well,
Don't they seem to do the plan?
No, they
first?
have to do it at the time that they apply. Maybe not at pre-app,
but
but
at discretionary.
right. And most of the big developments get a delineation at pre-app or even before, so that they don't spend all this money developing plans for 200 units when it turns out that they can only fit 100 units.
So to just to get back to Terry's question about ARPA funds, DEC is going to be using some ARPA funding. They're getting $170 million through ARPA, and they'll be using some of that funding for buyouts for flood resilience and floodplain restoration. They may be doing wetland delineation as part of that, but I would think it would be in areas that are flood prone.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, even other business that anyone would like to mention? We still have 20 minutes, though. We could adjourn early.
I'm in favor of adjourning.
Okay. I officially adjourn this meeting.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
thanks
Thank
everybody.
you. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great
Okay,
day.
bye.